everybody. Hello and welcome to the Slowpoke Travel podcast. I am Buck and I am a sweaty mess. So I thought that I'd start this video with this disgusting intro of me just a aging, overweight, sweaty man, because there's nowhere to go but up from here. This video can only improve. But I did not have a heart attack today. Although it is around noon and I've been out walking in the sunshine in the clear Florida afternoon with the sun beating down, you know, it's like a Lawrence Arabia type scenario, except for instead of in the sandy desert, I'm in a different kind of desert. I'm in a retirement desert. We're doing a house sit in a 55 plus community. A vast, sprawling estate of retirees and little cookie cutter houses and yards and SUVs and you know, if you put a blindfold, you know, if I put on a blindfold and spun around 3 times and then took a blindfold off, you know, I'd have a hard time figuring out how to get home. You know, I have to walk around the neighborhood looking at the numbers because everything looks exactly the same. Which I can see the appeal of in some ways, but in some ways it's not my style. I like a little more individuality, I think. But that's one of the great things about house sitting, is that we get to travel around to different locations and actually live in different people's homes, folks that have different tastes and different lifestyles, and we get to sample those experiences for a extended period of time. Oftentimes, this particular house that we're at for 3 weeks, and then after this, we are going to a return house sit in another part of Florida for 3 weeks, and then a return house sit to another part of Florida for 3 weeks. We are enjoying the house sitting in Florida. It is very functional. You know, if you don't know anything about house sitting, I got links down below that'll take you to our website and some articles that we've written about house sitting. But house sitting is fantastic. I mean, it's a great way to travel. I mean, there are definitely some pros and cons, but from my perspective, it's a lot of pros. And it's definitely gotten us through this first or second year of post-pandemic. I shouldn't even say that word, because I'm sure the internet algorithm monsters flag anything having to do with anything that anybody wants to argue about. You know, can be affected by the language. I don't know exactly what I just said, but you know, I'm a dehydrated older person, and I know I'm older because, you know, like in the old Jimmy Stewart movies and John Wayne movies, just those old movies where people used to pull their pants up. You know, you pull your pants up to where your belly button is, or maybe a little higher. I do that now. My pants are up. I don't have my pants hanging down where they used to hang down. Now they're up because your body shape changes. You know, it's definitely snowballed in the last year, although I don't feel too bad. I mean, I actually weigh less now than I have really since I was a very young man, although I was kind of heavy as a young man. But I weigh as much now as I did when I was in my early 20s. And I mean, if I weighed like this back then, I was in great shape. But now I'm at that weight and I'm not in great shape. And it's because, you know, a lot of that weight used to be muscle. Not that I was ever overly musculature-y, but man, a lot of that old muscle weight is no longer muscle weight. I wonder what it could be. Maybe my organs have gotten larger. Maybe I have more lymph nodes. Could I have more blood? I certainly don't have more hair. Also, some of that weight, the hair weight is gone as well. So my muscle weight and my hair weight have been offset by fat. It's fat. So yeah, it's I'm just really disappointed to weigh as much as I weigh right now, which is about 182, 183. Some days it's 179, some days it's 185, but I've been keeping in that range now, around 180, for long enough to where I feel that that's my new weight. Man, when I got off the trail, I think the first time I went backpacking on the Appalachian Trail, it was in the early 90s, and when I hit the trail, I weighed 250 pounds. I mean, I was big. I was, because I was at a point in my life where I wasn't thrilled. A lot of things had come to a head. I had been working at a job for 9 years. And I hadn't enjoyed the job for quite a while. And I was looking to make a change in my life, because I didn't enjoy going to work. I was very shy. I wanted a life of adventure because I read a lot. I was a nerd, but in real life, I just had a job I didn't love, and I ate a lot of fried chicken and donuts, and, I was in, my mid-20s, and I don't know, I just didn't have any direction. I felt like, I'd already had a job for 9 years. So that's like a midlife crisis. Usually, somebody, you go to school, blah, 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 you get a job, and by the time you've had a job for, almost a decade, you're in your 30s, you're creeping up toward your 40s maybe. So you have your midlife crisis. But here I was in my mid-20s, and I got to kind of experience a midlife crisis so early in my life because I had been in a rut for almost a decade. But what was my point? My point was I went hiking at 250 pounds. And after hiking on the Appalachian Trail for 4 months, I weighed 180 pounds. Pretty much what I weigh right now, except for mid-20s me at 180 pounds after hiking for 4 months. I mean, I wasn't Conan the Barbarian. I wasn't even Conan the Barbarian's sickly nephew, but I was still, in that kind of, Nordic thug realm. I sort of looked like I could do some damage. If you were weaker and smaller than me, you might want to think twice before, trying to buy your Fruit Loops ahead of me in line. But I felt like I came off the trail looking pretty good at this weight. Now here I am, boom, fast forward 35 years. And at that same weight now, I am not in any way Nordic or imposing. I am surprisingly still chubby because all of that muscle memory, talk about muscle memory, all of my muscle memory is up here. It is all 100% memory. Even so, I feel good. But I'm walking every day, twice a day. This has kind of been like a healthy little house sit for us because it's out in the boonies. And by boonies, I mean you have to get in a car to go anywhere. We're not in the boonies like we're in some secluded rural area. This feels like we're in do you ever see that movie Vivarium? I think that's how it's pronounced, Vivarium. I'll put a link down below. There'll be links to everything that you could ever imagine down below. But it's a movie with Eisenberg. Anyway, this actor, Jesse Eisenberg. But it's a movie about these folks that go to live in this sort of subdivision. And that's kind of where we're staying right now in this house sit, which has, its pros and cons. I could see where a lot of people live here. There are a lot of retirees. It's kind of a, okay to do area, people hard up don't live here. It's a very nice area. And there is some slight diversity, but almost everybody looks like a retired professor or engineer or something like that. It's all a bunch of retired professionals, some retired military people, but just a very cookie cutter environment. Everybody's yard looks the same. The houses all look the same. Everybody's playing pickleball, riding their bicycles, and you wave. You got to wave. You got to wave at everybody. I don't know anybody, but you wave at everybody. It's great. It sort of has like, it's almost like a 1950s, the idea of the lost 1950s, you know, for, you know, the, you know, Leave It to Beaver crowd, you know, sort of looks like that. You know, although it's not all. I mean, there's definitely some Asian families here. There's some African American families here. There's a little bit of diversity. You're seeing, you know, it's not entirely Leave It to Beaver, but mostly it's Leave It to Beaver. And I can see the appeal, but it's probably not my style. You know, I probably spent too much time camping. I probably spent too much time working in restaurants with a diverse crowd. Well, I say a diverse crowd working in restaurants, but a lot of the crowd working in restaurants, especially in the kitchen, isn't a diverse crowd. It's a lot of recovering and not quite recovering alcoholics. Yeah, it's a very, you know, a certain type of person works in a kitchen and does it for a while. And I did it for a long time. Many years. But I did it in a lot of different kitchens. So for me, it was a form of, you know, like remote work. You know, when I think about remote work, I think I was like one of the, oh, I don't know. I was a remote worker before remote work. Before the computer, I was a remote worker because I would go work somewhere remotely. Not working on my computer, but I would actually go to a remote location and work someplace in the wilderness in Alaska or in Wyoming or in some place where there weren't people. So they would have to bring in people to work there, and that's called remote work, seasonal work, where you go work in a tourist lodge or a hotel or some type of resort near a national park or in a national park, or some sort of destination where people want to go to on vacation, but there is no actual town there. So you have to bring in all of your people and you work for a season, and then everything shuts down and you got to go somewhere else. So you take your skill, like working in a kitchen, and you pack up. And, you know, I used to go from Wyoming to New Orleans, back and forth. You know, sometimes I'd stay in Wyoming for a few years. Sometimes I'd stay in New Orleans for a few years. But there were a lot of years where I would just bounce. Summers in Wyoming and winters in New Orleans, and falls in Las Vegas, or backpacking on the trail for a little bit. So it was kind of like remote work in that you were traveling and working, but you weren't bringing your computer and your job with you. Your job was waiting for you at some kitchen or restaurant where they were about to get busy for a few months. So they'd be glad to see you coming, and they'd be glad to see you go after all the business was gone. So that sort of lifestyle gave me kind of a short attention span, and it made me want to be in different environments, you know, for short periods of time. I have a short attention span. So a place like this, where there is such uniformity, this has been a good experience for this 6-week house sit. Don't think that I would want to be here for an entire year. Of course, a lot of people that stay here don't stay here for an entire year either. They're retired and this is their home base, and they travel. And that's why we're doing this house sit right now. So I could see that, except for you have to have a car to live here. Not interested in living anywhere where you have to have a car. But I just wanted to make this video today because I haven't made a video in a while, so I just thought I would just update on our house sitting situation, which is we've been house sitting in Florida. We've had a couple of house sits in Florida this year. We got a house sit right now in Florida. We got 2 more coming up in Florida. So we're booked house sit wise really until the end of August. And then, I don't know, but I'm hoping that it's going to be something different other than house sitting in Florida. And I think we're holding out for it because we've seen a few house sitting opportunities I think normally we would have maybe thought about applying for, but we're waiting because we might, depending on the COVID situation, do something a little more interesting to break up this Florida monotony. Do you like Florida? Do you know anything about Florida? I'm up to my elbows in Florida. I had to cut because that conversation spiraled and went down the toilet, and I drowned. But I've crawled back out of the toilet, and here I am. All right, I think I'm starting to cool down. I got to do my Spanish. I've been trying to do an hour of Spanish every day, sometimes more than an hour. I do Spanish with Duolingo, which is an app on my phone. I do YouTube video Spanish, and that, there are a lot of YouTube tutorials where people are teaching Spanish, and I look at those. I go to different websites where they have Spanish text written out, and I read the text. I like making cooking videos. I love cooking, so I watch some Spanish language cooking videos because I know, I can tell by what they're doing and the ingredients, I know a lot of what they're talking about. So I can better understand it. If I was watching, some Spanish language car repair, I'd have a hard time following it, but I can follow the cooking stuff. So that helps me learn. And I've started using an actual live tutor online. So once or twice a week, I spend an hour, kind of like on a Zoom call, with a natural Spanish-speaking person in Mexico. So I've reached a point where I can make use of that, but it really only magnifies my inability to speak and understand Spanish, but I am slowly progressing. So I've been working on that. So I think we're leaning towards heading towards a Spanish-speaking country for our first travels back out of the country if everything continues opening up. Although, I showed a camera girl a house sit this morning in Edinburgh, Scotland. But it was that time of year that was going to be cold. I showed her one up in Vancouver, Canada, too, that was on a boat. A house sit on a boat, which would be terrible. But still, it's good to do terrible things because it's a good experience. You gotta do things that maybe ain't so great so that you'll appreciate the things that are better. That's why as much as I want to go back to Mexico, and every other day I'm like, Mexico, Mexico. I keep thinking, well, we don't want to go to Mexico first because my anticipation is too high. I'm too high on my last memories of Mexico, so it'll be a definite letdown if I go right from here back to Mexico because I built it up too much in my mind. So I need to temper those expectations with the trip somewhere else first. But we'll see how that goes. But I've just been thinking about doing a dang podcast for such a long time, and I don't do it. I got some subjects I could do it about because I've been using my Kindle a lot, and I'm very happy with the Kindle, and I've been reading a lot because of all the lockdowns and stuff, and because I couldn't go to bookstores, or I wasn't comfortable going to thrift stores and buying actual books for a long time, so I got a Kindle. And so I started reading a lot more, and I really love the Kindle because now I can order whatever I want to read, whatever pops into my head that I want to read. I can go find it and see how much it is. If it's too much, more than I want to pay, I can put it on a list and wait for it to go on sale. But I can think about what I'm interested in reading, and then I can get it. Whereas I always, over the last few years, I've always just gone to a thrift store or a used bookstore or someplace where there was a finite, limited a number of books, and then I would find something in that I would be happy to read. So here's your options, choose one. Whereas, with the internet, I got all options and I can just decide and then go find whatever it is. So I've gotten to read some more obscure books. Doris Piserchia, I think that's how you say her last name. She's an author. I read a little bit when I was a kid and I enjoyed her books. And so there's a certain nostalgia in her books. Science fiction, kind of weird. She's a good writer. Just interesting stuff. Something that's very hard to find in a thrift store or used bookstore. And certainly not in a new bookstore because her stuff's been out of print for a long time. But I've been reading some of her, who's the guy? The director who did Bone Tomahawk, and he did Dragged Across Concrete, and he did the Brawl. Can't think of his name. I'll put it here. But he's got some books that you're definitely not going to find. But I've been able to read all of his novels on the Kindle. Bone Tomahawk, just a fantastic movie. The Brawl. The first time I saw The Brawl, hated it. But it's a movie I can rewatch. I enjoy it more every time I see it. It's kind of like that Brad Pitt movie. What's that Brad Pitt movie? He plays, had James Gandolfini. There's a clip of Obama speaking. It has something to do, it's about the United States and financial crisis and how the mafia is sort of like the Wall Street guys, and I can't think of the name of that movie, but I'll put that right here. And that's a movie I can watch over and over again. And I saw that movie in the theater, and I didn't care for it at all. But I watched it a second time. I was like, this is a great movie. And I can watch it over and over again because it's very talky. If you got really good actors and they're saying interesting things, and there's a lot of language, if there's a lot of narration or a lot of conversation, just a lot of cool talking. Like Glengarry Glen Ross. It's like a play because I love reading plays because it's all dialogue. So for some reason, like the plays of David Mamet, I can read plays and enjoy them. I don't know why. But have you ever done that? It's like poetry, some poetry. Like Charles Bukowski. I hated Charles Bukowski when I was a kid. Because I would read some poetry and I would write some poetry because I was pudgy and I didn't have any friends. But I had heard about Charles Bukowski and I read Charles Bukowski as a high schooler and as a young man, and it was terrible. It was just terrible. But then once I started living in New Orleans and spending a lot of time in bars, then I could see then it was very believable. Then what he was writing, I could see it all around me. I could see these people depicted in the Bukowski poetry. Then it became, now I understand this. And so I love reading Charles Bukowski because his stuff just rolls off the tongue. It's, you don't have to be a genius to read Charles Bukowski. And so I got hooked on his poetry, read tons of his poetry, love it, got great books. What is it, Ham on Rye, and one about working in the post office. I don't know, I read a bunch of his books. But this podcast is just totally spiraled. I guess I haven't been talking in a while. But anywho, I'm going to wrap this up because I'm sure my battery is going to go kaput before too long. Check out our cooking videos over on our cooking channel. We've been pretty good about doing a cooking video every week, and haven't been great over here on the travel channel because our travels have been sort of, I don't know. I bet you people would be interested in it, but it just seems like the same old. Florida. I can never get excited about Florida. The grass is always greener. So here I am, sitting in the green grass of Florida, which is just a saying because actually it's the burnt the burnt grass of Florida. But yeah, it's great here. I just need to go somewhere else first to appreciate it. But I hope you're having a great weekend. Blah, blah, blah. Alrighty, that is it. Click, subscribe, review, share all over the global internet sphere. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next time on the Slowpoke Travel podcast.